welcome to another episode of We Don't Watch Movies. Woo! Featuring me, Corinne.
And me, Monze.
Woo!
Yeah!
Alright.
Da, 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 da.
So today it's my turn. I'm going to give Monze choices, though.
I don't even remember what
great.
thing was.
So here were my original plan was...
Was it the monkey one?
No.
The chimp one?
No.
Oh.
I keep changing. So because I keep watching more movies. So
oh my god, yeah, imagine that.
Okay. I've seen a couple new movies. So we'll give you an option. So the original one was Bad News Bears 1976. The original
I remember that.
Bad News Bears, yeah.
I've seen it on Sling. I haven't watched it, but I saw it and I was like, I can't watch this because Corinne is going to tell me about this movie.
Yeah, so that's the original, which we could still do. But yesterday I watched two more movies. Because, so I watched Woman of the Hour.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, about the serial dating killer.
Yeah. And then I watched...
No, the serial killer dating game guy.
Yeah. Rodney
Also,
Alcala.
I think he was on that show like 3 times, actually. He was on that show
Was he on it 3 times?
Yes, he was on there multiple times.
Wow, they only showed the one.
Yeah, they just showed that one time.
I remembered him from a different...
I listened to a whole podcast about him.
Yeah, the several crime documentaries have featured him, too. I don't remember if the Night Stalker one talked about him, or if it was the one that was about how California was like the serial killer capital of the world. But I remembered hearing about him on a different documentary, or one that was specific to him. Anyways, So I watched that last night. And then after that, I watched Haeundae, which is Korea's first disaster movie from 2009. So those are the 3 options for you.
You sound excited about the last one.
It's not. I like disaster movies. This movie is not good.
Okay. Do you want to talk about something that's not good?
Which one do you want to hear about?
I mean, I want to watch Woman of the Hour. I want to watch it.
Do you want to watch it with no spoilers?
I think I do want to watch it with spoilers.
So we'll take that one off.
I know he doesn't kill her because I know enough about the story. So I think I am interested without the spoilers.
Okay. I definitely want to hear you tell me about it after you watch it, though, because I have opinions, but...
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
See, I feel like this would be a really good conversation.
Because I know, because both of us watch a lot of true crime and documentaries on that kind of stuff.
Yes.
So I'm very curious to hear your opinion on that. So then it's between Bad News Bears or Haeundae, but I watched Haeundae recently, so...
Do you want to talk about Haeundae?
Are you okay talking about a disaster movie? Cause
yeah, that's fine. I'm going off your vibe right now, and it seems like you really want to talk about that one, or like it's fresh enough in your mind that you.
I can just talk about it. Yeah.
Yes, that's why I'm saying as opposed to I think Bad News Bears where you have to sort of like go back and like look through.
Yeah, that movie I do want to talk about. I can just move it to something else, but yeah.
Okay.
All right, so we'll talk about Haeundae because I just watched it. And this movie is really not good. Okay.
Wait, so they had never made a disaster movie at all?
Before 2009, unless you count like a kaiju movie, no.
That is so interesting.
Isn't that interesting?
I guess if you think about Korea and like their history in modern history, post World War II, like post Korean War, I guess it makes sense because Korea spent a lot of time rebuilding. I mean, same if you think about Japan. Yeah. A lot of time rebuilding. That I think probably the idea of a disaster of destroying what we've built would probably be like, why would you want to do that?
Yeah.
Kind of thing, right?
I could see that.
Because even if you think like after the Twin Towers, there was a while where people were like, we can't really show, skyscrapers being attacked and falling down, right? Like that was a thing for a while, even here. So if I think about if you think about the trauma of being in a war and having to develop, I wonder if that's interesting. Okay. Anyway,
I wish I knew more about Korean film history, which I I applied for, I got into the community college, obviously, so.
Oh, like it's hard? No, I'm kidding.
Their enrollment is really low, I just realized, because, like, there's, like, 4 community college board positions up for election, and when I was looking up who I should vote for, they were all talking about how the enrollment was really low, and I was like, that's interesting. This actually
Well, I'll help you guys out. Add me to the list.
Yeah. But yeah, I wish I knew more about it to kind of get into... to, I guess, answer that question a little more, explore that question a little more. Because I'm not sure, but I don't think that's entirely off base. Because even Godzilla, which is arguably a disaster movie, it's kind of more like a monster movie, that was born from, like, the collected trauma of being bombed by the atomic bomb.
More like Godzilla
as opposed
is the
to
metaphor for...
Exactly. Yeah. As opposed to Korea, where the collected trauma was we don't have agency over our country, we don't have sovereignty.
Yeah, for a long time.
Yeah. So that's kind of more that versus Japan's like, oh my god, we had like a, So I'm not sure. But hopefully one day I will find out. Anyways, it might also just be, I don't know.
Might just be like, maybe they never had, I don't know,
They didn't know if it would be popular, but again, it's like why, etc.
or whatever. I'm sure even in Korea they're watching like 2012 and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. So Monze, why haven't you seen this movie?
I didn't know about this movie until 5 minutes ago when he told me about the movie. So.
Okay, that's fair. The only
okay,
I've known about this movie for several years, and I've wanted to watch this movie for several years. I learned about this. I've known about this movie since college, like undergrad.
Okay.
Back when I would watch disaster movie compilations where it was just the disaster scenes.
I remember you telling me about that. And much like then, I'm sure I was just like, why? Because I don't get it, but whatever. Continue.
Yeah, so one of them had, because there's, it's about, well, I won't tell you because you don't even know what it's about, but one of them had a scene from that movie. And I was like, oh, there's a Korean one. And I remembered looking it up, and of course I looked at the parental advisory, and at the time, what I read made me a little skittish about the movie, so I was like, I don't know if I want to watch this. So I delayed, and then when I was in Korea, I told you we saw, like, that really traumatizing opening 10 minutes of Ode to My Father, which is the same director. So when I found out it was the same director, it put the movie back on my radar. So then yesterday I was like, let me watch something after watching Woman of the Hour, and I wanted to watch a disaster movie. So I was like, okay, let's see if this movie's on here. And it was on Roku for free. So that was how I watched it, and that's how I knew about it.
It's always like the weird channels that have the movie. They really come in the clutch.
They really are. They have all the movies.
Like I watched Death Becomes Her for the first time a week ago or two, and it was on Tubi, and I was like, why? I don't know, but I'm watching it.
Why not?
Thanks, Tubi. Appreciate it.
Exactly. All right.
They also had Teen Witch. Sorry, and I love Teen Witch. So if you want to watch Teen Witch,
we talked about that movie.
Yes, we talked about that movie. Yeah. So I don't think you've seen it yet.
No, I still haven't seen it.
Anyway, it's on there.
Okay, good to know. So Monze, what do you think Haeundae is about?
Can you tell me at least if there's an English translation of the title?
Yes.
What is it?
The English translation of the title is Tidal Wave.
Okay, so I'm assuming tsunami based. Okay, I like your like.
But the funny thing is, Haeundae doesn't mean tidal wave. Haeundae is a beach in Busan.
Okay.
Which I've gone to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it happens at that certain beach in Busan.
Yes.
Right? And there is a tsunami. Mm-hmm. Now the details of this. Okay. Now
what's the story?
What's the story? Who are we following? Okay. Because I know absolutely nothing. I think it's going to be like, I kind of want it to be about 2 different stories. I think maybe like the meteorologist who no one listens to, right? Maybe she's like young and peppy and she's like really into it, but she's also like, guys, I think there was just an earthquake over there. Like, I think it's going to cause a tsunami. And everyone's like, you're so young and you don't know anything, and also you're a girl, so we're not really going to listen to you. It's the older meteorologist guy who's like, I've been here for 20 years and I'm head of the Korean Weather Service and you don't know anything, and also Busan is so far away, it's not going to hurt us at all. She's like, no, I think it's going to be so big it might even hit, like, I don't know, Seoul or something weird, right? But mainly Busan. Yeah. Busan will be underwater and they'll be like, we don't believe you, right? But then there's also, boom, another family. Their stories will intersect. Oh, you know how it is.
I know how it is.
Right? It's like, it's a hardworking man and his family, his wife, his child, whatever. There's his parents. Maybe they live with his parents, like they're taking care of the parents. Okay, so they're a little bit older, a little more sickly. And he's a fisherman.
Ooh.
He's a fisherman. I'm bringing it all on the weekend. He's a fisherman. And he has lived in Busan his whole life, and he isn't a meteorologist, but he is a bit like, I can tell when, like, there's gonna be rain or something, right? Like, he's always a bit like,
he's got that intuition,
He's got that intuition, right? Of, like, decades and generations of not farmers, fishermen or whatever, right? And he's got like a teenage daughter or son or something. I'm gonna make it a son, and he's like trying to teach his son how to be a fisherman, and his son is like, I don't want to be a fisherman, Dad.
This is your dream, Dad, not mine.
Yeah, that's your dream, Dad, not mine. I'm gonna leave Busan. I'm gonna go to Seoul, and I'm gonna work at a business and have my own whatever. And he's like, but son, this is how we've always done things. Don't you want to stay in Busan with your family? He's like, no, I don't care about my family. And I was like, respect your elders.
Yeah.
And so anyway, the earthquake happens, and this guy the father is on the boat when the earthquake happens, and he's like, something has happened or whatever. I gotta get back to shore.
He's running back home with his boat.
He's running to the engine of his boat to start it to go, whatever. And so the meteorologist lady is like, if you're not gonna do anything about it, I'm gonna do something about it. So she like goes down to like that beach or whatever, and she's like telling everyone, like, get out of here, you gotta get out of here. And this is so dumb. The thing is, you said this isn't good. It's not a good movie, so I'm trying really hard to kind of make it not a good movie, but also my brain is coming up with ideas. And the father shows up on the beach or whatever, and maybe his son decides he's gonna go somewhere. Maybe he wants to be like. He wants to be like a K-pop star or something, right? Like
in 2009?
You know how it is. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up.
I guess he could. That would be very early.
And
he saw Shiny and was like, "That's what I want.
That's it.
That's for me.
Exactly.
Big
me
Bang.
Too.
It's going to be for me."
That's me
He
too.
saw the writing on the wall and was like,
He's
"I gotta
like,
make
this
that
is
move
our
right
future.
now.
I don't want to be a fisherman father." Aboji, you don't understand, right? And so, so he was like, maybe they were supposed to meet on the beach or whatever, but the son decides he's like gonna go to, I don't know, Seoul or whatever. He's gonna meet his friends somewhere. Yeah. So he's like on a bus and he's gonna head out. So the dad's like, oh no, my son, where is he? And he's like, what are we, like, so he's like trying to find his son. He doesn't know where his son is, and his son is like, I'm going to do my own thing because I don't care about my dad and his dreams, right?
Yeah.
And the meteorologist like runs into the father, and she's like, there's going to be a tsunami, and he's like, I know, I can feel it in my bones. And he's like, we've got to warn people, but no one's listening to me because I'm young and I'm a woman and I'm not from this town. And he's like, I will help you, but you need to help me look for my son. Here's his pictures, and he hands them. She's like, okay.
He hands them.
I don't know. I'm not saying like they're gonna get together. I'm just saying I'm assuming the son's a teenage, but I'm just like, yeah. He wants to take a moment to have her admire his children.
Yeah. The casting agents need to see how handsome this promising actor is.
Look how handsome my beautiful son is. He looks just like Lee Min-ho. So So, they're like, okay, whatever. So they're gonna go help. And she's like got her little charts and stuff. She's like, it's gonna be big. We need to move everyone up, or whatever. He's like, okay. So he's trying to get all like the elderly people up, and she's like trying to help too, but she gets in trouble. She gets caught. And so, like, the meteorologist people, like, are, like, dragging her back. Mm-hmm. Like, we gotta go. And she's like, no, you don't understand. It's gonna be big. He's like, this town has seen a lot of tsunamis. They know what to do. And she's like, no, it's gonna be worse. Those sandbags aren't gonna hold, like, whatever.
Sandbags aren't gonna hold.
I don't know anything about how we, prepare against any kind of flooding, to be honest.
Sandbags are used for flooding.
Yeah, sandbags, those little,
Monze is just flapping hands open like a gate.
Yes, what are they called? They're not levees. Are they levees? Yes,
yeah,
levees.
Levees, yeah.
See?
Okay.
Yes, see? I'm really into my story. Okay, so, I don't even know where this is going. I feel like I'm
really
Act
invested
1.
right now.
I
want to watch this movie.
I want to watch this movie. And anyway, she gets taken away, and she's like telling the father, like, make sure you get everyone up, further in, like, on land, whatever. And he's like, you got it. But he's still, like, super worried about his son, and he's like, and his parents are like, we're gonna die here. And he's like, no, you're coming with us, and like maybe the dad's like very stubborn, and they want to stay back, but he has to be like, I'm sorry, I can't respect your wishes, and he like takes them up. Mm-hmm. But they're still looking for the son. The son is on a bus, but the bus is near the beach. Oh. So when the tidal wave, the tsunami starts coming, he's like on the bus. There's like the scene where he's on the bus and you see like the waves getting bigger. And he looks out the window and you see like the big, and he's like, shock. There's utter shock on his face and fear. And,
I can see it so clearly.
And his mind, he hears the voice of his father, like, it's dangerous. It's dangerous out there to, like, leave Busan or whatever. But in his mind, he's like, it's dangerous to stay in Busan. Anyway, he just wishes he could have said goodbye to his father.
Oh, yeah.
And you just sort of see, like, the bus get hit, but we don't know what happens to him. Right? Mm-hmm. So they're back on shore, whatever, and the meteorologists are all like, oh no, it's a crazy tsunami! And that lady is like, I told you so. And so they're like, we don't know what to do. And she's like, I've been preparing, takes off her glasses my whole life for this moment. And like you do a flashback and you see when she was a child, she saw a tsunami, and maybe it killed like her entire family. She was the only one who survived. Yeah, crazy, right? And she's like super aware and like super freaked out about it, right? Which is why she was like, I'm gonna become a meteorologist in this area to help everyone.
This is like Twisters, but tsunami, right? It's reminding me of.
Oh yeah, I guess. I mean, every disaster movie is more or less kind of the same.
They are kind of the same.
And so they're like, okay, and she's like, I got this, right? Because maybe the head meteorologist, even though he's been doing this for like 20, 30 years, he's never actually been like seen these kind of disasters. So she's like, you're useless, I can do it. And she goes in there and she's like leading the expedition, or not the expedition, but she's like, setting out warnings to everyone. And the father is basically like the whole town up on top of whatever. And he's like, I've got everyone up here. And he calls the meteorology lady, like, I got everybody up here. Like, have you seen my son? She's like, I haven't seen your son. But I gotta tell you, you gotta go further up. The tsunami, the next wave, it's gonna be much bigger. It's gonna get you guys. And they're like, oh no, we gotta move forward. But by this time, everyone is like, it's just way too crowded and they can't get through or whatever. So he's like, I can't save everyone. I just have to save my family. You know how it is. Yeah. Like, I just gotta save my. So he gets into like a truck or whatever, and he's like going off the road and doing what he's got to do, and his parents are in the back are like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm sorry. Yeah. And then they like move further, and as they're driving up, you see the big giant wave coming behind them, nipping at their heels. Yeah. But they manage to drive up and out. Anyway, and then we cut to the bus is still on the highway.
Okay.
And the guardrails along the thing, and it's like tipping over, and like everyone inside the bus is kind of like wet, and there's like flooding.
Yeah.
But it's like, and they're like, what are we gonna do? We gotta get out. And the kid calls upon his ancestors. And he's like, my father would know what to do in this situation. I'm gonna channel my father's energy. And he's like, maybe the bus driver's dead or whatever. And he's like, I've gotta be the one to save. And he's like, sorry, dead bus driver. And he's like, gets in the bus and he's like driving away. And there's like in Ponya, you know, where the ladies are like, he's like, but he's also like, I need to save my father. So the story's insane.
The story is crazy.
And he's like, so he goes into like the bottom part of town, but there's like no one there. It's like deserted. And everyone on the bus is like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And he's like, you're right. We gotta go. If my parents are here, they're probably dead. R.I.P. I love them, but I gotta live for me now. So he goes. Well, he takes a moment. He takes a moment to be sad.
My parents are dead, but I gotta live for me now.
So yeah, so he's like driving up to the top, and as we see him, we see everyone gets out. They're like, you saved our lives, you saved our lives. He's like, no, my father saved our lives, because he's in my heart. And then you hear far away, like someone's like, son, and he's like, how about you? And they're like running to each other, and they're like, whoa. But there's still one more giant wave coming from the. Yeah, this is Act 3 now, baby.
Act 3.
And, Act 3 now. But yeah, anyway, there's another big tidal wave, but the whole family's together, so like we gotta escape. And he's like, we can save a lot more people. Get in my bus. So they start getting as many people as they can into the bus, and they're like driving up. And the meteorologist, like, I don't even know what she's doing anymore. She's just like leading the team. Oh, maybe she's like on the news, you know, like TTRPGs or whatever news, and she's like, everybody, this is what's going on. You gotta figure, you know. And then everyone is like, the rest of Korea is like, oh no, we need to help everyone in Busan, right? So they start like, it's everyone like checking in and making sure, and you start seeing like the safety people. But anyway, the one wave comes. I've burnt out of this idea now. And they're all saved, and in the end, I guess, like, he meets up with the meteorologist. I feel like the meteorologist needs to do something else. She needs to, like, I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
I'll figure it out in my next draft.
This is just you writing a Korean disaster movie at this
writing
point.
a story.
This is just Haeundae 2, the sequel.
Here you go. And everyone is safe, but, like, the movie ends, like, you go, like, all the water's gone now, and the family comes back, and what you see is, like, the disaster. And that's the end of the movie.
I see.
It's more realistic of, like, boom, these is the consequences of global warming. I don't know. It's an underlying theme there. You don't see it. Like the father mentions, like, there's not just as much fish recently. I wonder, you know, ever since that oil spill over, I don't know, like something, you know.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
This is really, really very mindful and almost ahead of its time for a film in 2009.
Oh, I forgot it was made in 2009.
That's when it was released, too. Probably would have been made in, like, 2007 or something. So, the movie's nothing like
Not
that.
even close. I know, but I just got into it after a while.
I know, I was
kind of
there for it. Honestly, I was looking up, like, because Wikipedia, if you look up Korean disaster movies, they have, like, the little list you can click through. There's still not that many. There's maybe, like, a dozen or two. So I'm like, I could conceivably watch all of these if I wanted to. Except for the zombie ones, which they include, and I don't really want to watch those. But
oh, really?
Yeah. But some of the more recent ones, the scripts are written by non-Koreans, so you could totally write this, and then...
Korean! Is this how we become famous?
This is how we crack into the film industry.
We crack into the film industries. We crack into the Korean film industry. We
crack into Hallyu instead of Hollywood.
I'll take it. I will take it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, the movie is nothing like that, though kind of wish it was. I'm gonna look for the trailer.
Is there at least a young, snappy meteorologist?
No, I'm sorry.
Ah! Is there a working father?
There is a working father who
okay,
is a
there's
fisherman.
almost always a working father.
There is, I know. I feel like you're pulling from, like, disaster movies, but then also the K-dramas you watched and try to, like, meld them together.
Well, yeah, because it's obviously, it's gotta be a cultural, like, you gotta match it. You can't just, against that, like, an American story in Korea, like, you need to have the...
Oh, no, I could tell. That's what you were...
Thank you.
What you were pulling from. Oh, there's the official trailer Indonesia release, and then there's a longer trailer. I don't know if this is the actual trailer, but it was 12 years ago, which sounds like it makes sense. I will say, this movie is, like, not good, but I did cry, so... Yeah,
CJ Entertainment.
I mean, they make, like, everything at this point.
Yeah, they really do. One of the biggest earthquakes in history rocked Southeast Asia, leaving thousands dead or missing. Massive tidal wave battered the coast. And this year, Haeundae. Who's my jam? Oh! Okay. Oh! He just smacked that kid right in the face! This is so 2009.
Isn't it?
God. The fashion, even the storytelling. She got hit in the head? Is this only me? Is he a Coast Guard?
I hate her. I'm sorry.
Oh my
That's
god. Wait, is that actor?
Maybe.
I recognize that lady. Yeah, her. What are the chances of tsunami hitting Korea? Oh no, in grave danger?
He said Haeundae will be finished.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can only read subtitles.
No. I'm just saying. I think that's what it actually said, but contextually, that's what the subtitle said.
Oh no.
Aw, yeah.
Get out. There's a wave. Oh, that's not gonna save you. You have 10 minutes. The movie's 20 minutes long. Oh no, Timmy! To save the one you love. What? 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 Oh no! It is that actor. I recognized him from K-dramas.
All right.
July.
Do you want to amend your...
I think my story was much better.
Yes,
but it looks like it might just be like 3 people. It looked like 3 couples or 4 that are experiencing the tsunami.
Mm-hmm.
One looks like might be a family. Maybe it's 4. The other one is like that young couple that meets and like hit it off on the beach. There's the working lady and that working guy.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there was 3. Who was the other one I saw? Maybe that's all I saw. And they're living their lives in Busan when the tsunami hits, and they have to, if they want to survive, they have to survive, and they help each other. They try to help each other survive.
If they want to survive, they have to survive.
Am I wrong,
though? Here first, folks. survive.
Survive.
You have to survive.
I don't see the problem here.
It's
I don't think
simple.
I'm wrong.
It's a simple solution here. If you want to survive, you just have to survive.
I'm so tired. I gave all my energy to my explanation earlier. And I can only assume, like, in order to survive, they have to trust each other, basically, and, like, work together to get out. I think at least one or two of the couples die, or one, like, someone in there doesn't survive. And they're all like, oh, no. Then that's it. That's the end of the movie.
Okay.
Are tsunamis not... Do tsunamis happen often or not often in Korea? Do you know that?
I think it seems from how people talked about in this movie, it's not that often. I feel like if the tsunamis are coming from the east and moving west, I think Japan gets most of them.
Japan's
and kind of blocks
it.
them from Korea. I think Korea does get, like, we get typhoons and stuff. And I don't think Korea has never had tsunamis, but it's not like a big thing.
It's not as big an issue like in Japan where it's like tsunamis happen often. We have to prepare.
Yes,
It'd be more like a tsunami may or may not happen, but it's not the biggest threat.
Exactly.
Perhaps as much as like a typhoon.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Because even like with the earthquakes, because tsunamis come from earthquakes.
Yes.
Korea definitely gets earthquakes.
Yes,
but it's not like as frightening, I guess, as like in Japan. Because even like on the news, apparently somewhere in Korea had gotten an earthquake when I was over there. My mom was like, oh, that's like, that doesn't really happen here that often. She was like, we had a couple earthquakes when I was a kid, but it wasn't like a whole big deal thing. And I was like, but yeah, Korea would of course get earthquakes. They're also technically on the rim, but it's just not as common. A lot of people don't feel them because the earthquakes aren't that. It's nowhere near like California or Japan where it's like, was that an earthquake? You know, we get like
because they're like right on those like
exactly.
Okay,
that's my understanding of it. I might be wrong, but based on how they talked about it in the movie, that's
because based on
my inference from
what I saw from the trailer, it did feel like this isn't normal.
Yes.
So I was like, oh, okay, like I don't know anything really. So, okay, cool.
So the movie. Let's get into the movie. The movie starts off with the Indonesia 2004 Christmas tsunami earthquake.
Okay,
So,
I was like, okay.
Yeah, like the big one. But we focus on this fishing boat, I think in the Indian Ocean for some reason, but it's like a Korean fishing boat, or they're just out to sea, right? And they are getting rescued. But in the process of being rescued, you see that one of the big fishing cages has fallen onto one of the fishermen, and he's severely injured. Like it's like his lower half basically, and he's already bleeding out and kind of bleeding to death from whatever. And one of the main character, Manchik, he's trying to like get it off of him, but the rescuers are like, we gotta go, like, you know, it's not safe, we need to get you out of here. And everyone's like, come on. He's like, no, I don't want to leave this guy. And the guy's like, Manchik, take care of my daughter, Yeonhee. She's you gotta take care of her. And he's like, okay, like, and he's like crying, whatever. Like, there is so much screaming in this movie, and like the pitch is so high, it honestly gets really annoying. Like everyone's just crying at like the top of their lungs, at the top of their register. And while this is happening, the families of these fishermen are in Korea, and this one guy who's on the phone, he's like, oh, they're getting rescued. And then the one girl is like, what about my father? Is she okay? Is he okay? And that's like, you learn that's Yeonhee, who's like, oh my God, what about my dad? Yeah. So that's like that. Then we cut to 5 years later in Busan, in Haeundae. We see like this vibrant beach community and like a drastic tonal shift, which happens a lot with this movie. Like this movie, the color correction, the editing style, the tonal shift, and the dialogue and acting choices, I was like, yes.
Yeah, from the trailer, the coloring itself is like very strange.
I was like, this feels like an American 90s movie or like very early 2000s, and knowing that it's a Korean film, and at this time Korean films did not quite have the level of prestige that I would argue they have now. Hallyu Wave is just starting. Like, it's the first or second kind of wave at this point. So, like, at this point, there's probably some Americans that aren't Korean that are aware of Korean films. But, like, this is nowhere near the current level right now, like, almost 10 years, 15 years later, right? This is pretty early. Like, people have probably heard of it, but the prestige quality is not, it's not there yet. So that's reflected in the quality. Like, the editing is very fast, the color correction is crazy, and the acting is over the top, histrionic, completely melodramatic. If you've seen an old K-drama, you know what I'm talking about. It's like Boys Over Flowers, like, level.
Love Boys Over Flowers.
I do too, but that show does not hold up.
Yeah, it doesn't.
I also feel like at this point, like, I want to say, because I've seen, like, The King and the Clown, and that came out around this time, and I remembered really liking that film, and I didn't have a big of a problem with it. So I think, like, the historical dramas and stuff, Korea did pretty well, but this sort of, you know, like, the guy is clearly drawing inspiration from Roland Emmerich films, in my opinion. So it's, you know, anyways. So we're introduced to our cast of characters. So we see Manshik now. He's got his son. He's like, I don't know, 6 years old. And they're singing that song. He's trying to pull his kid's tooth out. So I think the idea is we're singing a song. And at some point he plans to pull the tooth out without the kid realizing. So we meet those two. I think the kid's name is Seung-hae. And then his brother comes in, I think, or his half-brother, Dong-hoon, comes in. And then Young-hee is, she's like, she has like an illicit seafood restaurant that she's trying to run, but she doesn't have a license, so she keeps just
it's like illicit.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like
an unlicensed restaurant.
Restaurant, and she keeps like using the materials or like the dishes from Manshik's family, which pisses off his mom. So she's basically been adopted into the family sort of thing because he feels responsible for her, obviously. And then their youngest brother we meet later, he's a rescue diver, which is that guy you think you recognize.
I should look up his name.
Yeah, I forgot what his character name is in the movie, but I'm just calling him the rescue diver.
Oh, Minki. Oh no, Hyung-sik.
Hyun-sik.
Cho Young-sik.
Hyun-sik.
Hyun-sik.
Hyun-sik, yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
He's an actor I recognize.
Yeah. I was like, he looks familiar. I don't remember where I've seen him. Anyways.
He's in a bunch of different K-dramas.
Yeah, so they, like, all kind of live together, and it's kind of, Manshik is part of, like, the Haeundae Commerce Board or something, and I think the idea is there's a lot of, like, mom and pop shops on this thing. It's kind of like this big, you know, like, people own their own stores and stuff. But Manshik's uncle, which is, we learn, was the guy who, in the beginning of the movie, had, like, he owns the fishing boat and all that. He's like a developer. He wants to make this big mall that will displace all those store owners. So Manshik hates this uncle because he's like, you're gonna hurt all these people and displace everybody and their livelihood just for money. And the uncle's like, oh, well, like, you can have a good spot in the mall.
Okay, but what if I get you an in?
Yeah, and then Manshik also blames his uncle for sending that fishing boat out when he knew there was a typhoon anyways, which led to the death of Yeonhee's father. So they're just, like, we see the family dynamic, and it's chaotic. Like, the mom hates Yeonhee and is like, stop trying to sell your fish right in front of my restaurant, and Yeonhee's like, I'm trying to make a living here, and Manshik's like, it's okay, let me help you out, don't worry about it. And it's like, oh, these two clearly kind of like each other, whatever. And then Dong-hoon, the half-brother, he, like, takes his nephew, which is the little boy, and, like, dresses him up to look like a beggar. And he's like, what songs do you know? Like, tell me what songs you know. He's like, I don't know any songs. He's like, you don't know any songs? He's like, oh, I know one song, Pororo. And he's like, what the fuck is Pororo? And then it cuts to the stepbrother is like, or the half-brother is got, like, looking like a beggar and has, like, the stuff out and has, like, his nephew on a leash. And the nephew is just singing, like, the Pororo theme song. Like, they're panhandling, basically. Now, prior to this, we meet our meteorologist, our scientist. He's that brainiac-looking guy. And he's like, we're getting a lot of, he's at a conference or something, and he's talking about like, oh, these earthquakes are happening in Japan, and Korea doesn't get tsunamis that often, but there's a possibility we could have a mega tsunami, blah, 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 blah. And people are like, what? You're crazy. There's no way we could have a mega tsunami. That's insane. And then some woman comes in, and he's like, oh. And then we learn that that's his wife or ex-wife. It's not clear whether they're separated or divorced. And he's like, when did you get here? And she's like, oh, now you care? He's like, just tell me when you got here. And she was like, last year. And he was like, why didn't you tell me? And then he's trying to be like, how is Jimin? And she was like, oh, now you care about your daughter? She's in 3rd grade. What do you care? And he's like, oh. And she's like, the daughter comes up and is like, Mom. And then she looks at the guy and she's like, who are you? And the mom later tells the guy, like, I didn't tell her you were her dad. It's just easier this way. And he's like, okay. And then she also, she has, literally, she has some boyfriend too. And he's just like, and she's like, don't act like you care now. You should have married your earthquakes and tsunamis instead of me, blah, 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 blah. He's like, okay, whatever. So then later when the kid and the uncle are begging, the little girl and her mom are there, and she's like, Mom, you should give him some money. And the mom's like, oh my god, okay, fine. So she gives him like 10,000 won, which at this time, depending on the rate, would have actually been $10. So the guy's like, oh my god, wow, we got so much money. And then later, Manchik is like having lunch or something with his friends, and they're like, hey, you gotta go to the police station, your kid's there. And he's like, what? And he goes to the police station, and like he sees his brother and kid there, and the police think that like the brother had kidnapped this kid. But then he's like, no, I swear we're related. And then Manchi comes over and there's like chaos in the police station. Like there's a lot of these like random shenanigans are happening. And I'm like, what about the tsunami though? Like why are these people just being crazy and doing stupid shit? So then later they go to a baseball game for some reason. Like there's supposed to be some nice moment where Manchik's like in the trailer where he's carrying like the boxes. He's like, Yeonhee, come to the baseball game with me. And she's like, no, I have to go work. He's like, come on. And she's like, and then they're at the baseball game. Also, Manchik is constantly drunk. He is drunk like almost 50% of the movie, like more than that, which is annoying to watch because of it's like drunk people are already annoying to watch in film, and then this is again histrionic melodramatic acting, so it's like pushed even more. So it's like, oh, you're so annoying. So he's at the baseball game, and then the team they're rooting for is doing really poorly. So then he just starts like ragging on the baseball player and being like a really annoying fan, and just keeps like heckling the players over and over. And I'm like, why is this happening? Like, why am I watching?
How does this serve the narrative?
How does this serve the truly? I'm like, I don't understand this. Meanwhile, there are these 3 preppy girls that are like on the beach, and one of them's like studying, and the other 2 are like, oh my god, stop studying. How will boys notice us if you keep studying? And she's like, I'm almost done. And then she finishes, and then they're like, oh my god, do you see the boys? They're right there. And like these 3 random guys look at them, they're like, hey, you guys are hot. You want to go on this boat with us? So they go.
I do not understand this at all.
No, and now I'm watching this like, what am I watching? So they're on the boat, and then one girl is like, oh my god, what is going on? Like, she says something, and the guy is like, oh, she's like, what number am I? How many other women have you brought on this boat before me? And he's like, well, you're the first stuck-up woman I've brought on this boat with me. And she's like, ah! And so she goes out onto like onto the boat, and there's this lighter gag where like she like tries to light her cigarette, but the lighter flame is bigger than she realizes, and it surprises her and she falls off the boat. And I'm like, girl, that's how you die. So she like falls off this boat, and then the brother that's a rescue diver, the youngest one, sees her because he's in like a boat himself, and he's like, oh, let me go help you, but he like throws the float at her and it hits her head. And he's like, oh my god. So then he like swims over here, and I'm watching this, I'm like, is this supposed to be a comedy? Like, what am I'm so confused, because it keeps switching back between like the shenanigans of this family, and then the very serious earthquake scientist that's like, there's a tsunami coming, I know that's coming. Because his theory is like, there's this island, which I thought was really funny because in the English subtitles, it said it was Tsushima Island off of Japan, but in Korean, they called it by the Korean name. So I was like, oh, there must be political contentions around this island and who it belongs to. But he's like, if this island collapses, then the water displacement is going to cause an enormous wave. And there have been lots of earthquakes happening in Japan and blah, 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 blah. And people are like, well, we don't even... That's where he talks about, like, do you know how many earthquakes Korea even gets that are above, like, a 3? They get 30 a year. Like, we're not earthquake-free. And people are like, what? I've never felt that. So, like, that's happening while all this stupid shit is happening with, like, the people. So then the rescue diver goes in to go, like, get her. But then, of course, he's, like, he like, grabs her by the hair to bring her up to the surface. And I was like, what? And then, of course, when they get to the surface, she's, like, panicking, and he's like, get off of me, because she's grabbing onto him and pushing him down. So he, like, hits his head against her head to knock her out and gives her a bloody nose, and then he finally is able to rescue her. But she's, like, I don't know, she gets weird about it. And this bitch, she's so annoying. She starts, like, harassing him constantly afterwards. But then she also likes him, so it's, like... that annoying character trope of like, hey, even though you saved my life, you like bloodied my nose or whatever, I could sue you. Are you going to be responsible for this? Blah, 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 blah. And he's like, how did you even find me? Oh, what do I even do? Oh, I remember he was giving like CPR to her. And then halfway through, she was like, oh, and she starts like hugging him and then bites his lip. And he's like, ow, get off of me. And I was like, I don't want to watch this. Like, this is, what am I watching? And then later when the rescue diver's having, like, dinner with his friends, she finds him and she's like, yeah, you did this and this to me. Look at what you did to my eye. And he's like, okay, I don't know what to tell. I'm sitting there like, bro, you saved her life. You should be like, stop bothering me.
I saved your life.
Like, I literally saved your life. But she's like, you owe me, blah, blah, blah. Who's responsible for this? How could you hurt my eye like this? Blah, blah, blah. And she keeps showing up at, like, his place of work and threatening to sue. And he has to, like... temporarily leave his job to go work at a child care center because his boss is like, yeah, I'm sorry you're getting sued because of how you handled this. But it's like, it's her. And then she keeps finding him and harassing him and like, how come you didn't tell me where you went? How come you didn't tell me that she moved to somewhere else? I'm like, you are so annoying. But of course they play it off like it's endearing. It's like that one really annoying girl in Oh My Venus. Do you remember that? I was like, I hate this bitch. But she got with the guy that we liked anyways at the end. The like... punching guy. Anyways.
The main girl?
No, it was like this side character girl that fell in love with like the boxing guy that the main guy was coaching.
No.
Anyways, it reminded me of her because I hated her and I hated this character too. So that's like happening, and then the baseball game thing, and then like he's super drunk, but then he accidentally eats shampoo. And
what? What?
And
Why? What?
He's looking for medicine, but then he like the medicine is included with like the shampoo or something, but it's like in like a little package, like it's not like a bottle, it's like a sample shampoo thing or whatever. So he eats that, and then someone's like, oh my god, come over here, Yunhee's being attacked, and he's like, what? Because she had served those 3 guys that hit on the girls at the beach. But then one of them got food poisoning from her restaurant. So then the other 2 went over to her and was like, hey, we're going to make you pay. So there's like a fight happening here. So then Manchik goes over to try to help her. But then he's like foaming at the mouth because he poisoned himself with shampoo. So they bring him to the ER and he's in the bed next to the guy that got the food poisoning. And I'm like, what is happening? Anyways, so... more and more of these shenanigans keep happening. Eventually, he tries to, like, propose to her, and she's like, oh my god, yay! And there's, like, this fireworks show, and everyone, like, we see all the different characters watching this fireworks show. And then we also get some, like, his half-brother with his... they have different moms, but I guess the same dad. The half-brother is eating dinner with his mom, and the mom's like, I got you a job interview. And he's like, that's so embarrassing at my age. And she's like, but you need a job.
It's more embarrassing that you don't have a freaking job, dude.
Literally. And then he's like, I'm not gonna go, I don't even have decent shoes. And she's like, will you go if I buy you shoes? He was like, no, just lay off of it. And I'm like, this guy is terrible. I hate him. I hope he dies too. And then, so at this point, and like, I'm an hour in to the movie.
This is all just setup.
I know.
Okay.
I know. I'm an hour into the movie, and I'm like,
how long is the movie?
2 hours.
What?
This is a 2-hour movie, and
the tsunami should have hit already.
of like, here's the
Not
coast.
blue balling you!
Yeah! Of like, this Tsushima island of like, oh, another earthquake happened, here's what's happening on the ocean floor, and then we go back to this stupid shit going on. And I'm like, when is this tsunami going to
like,
fucking...
at this point, I want them all to die.
Literally! And then the scientist guy, he's like, oh my god, the reading, like, his research is like, the readings look just like it did off of, like, before the Indonesia earthquake and tsunami happened. And he's like, we need to act now. So he goes over to, like, I don't know, this one guy that's the head of evacuation or the weather guy, and he tells him, he's like, we need to evacuate people. And he's like, what are you talking about? That's like 1 million people, and the World Expo is happening. Because, oh yeah,
It's not the World Expo!
The Culture Expo is happening in Busan. Because the scientist, his ex-wife works for the Culture Expo thing.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
And there's like a whole thing still between there, like, it's clear that her boyfriend doesn't take good care of her daughter because they get lost, and the daughter ends up in like the lost child section where like the younger rescue diver guy is working at, and the mom is trying to call her boyfriend and he's not picking up, so then she calls her ex-husband, and ex-husband goes over there, but he like can't embrace his daughter because she doesn't know he's her dad, so he's just standing there awkwardly. And then the mom shows up and she's like, oh, why did you leave? Why did you get lost? You made me so worried. And the dad's like, hey, you need to take better care of her. And she's like, how dare you tell me to take better care of her? You didn't even care about us for years. Don't get in my way again. I never want to see you. Like, don't tell me how to be a mom. Blah, 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 sort of bullshit. And he's like, so like this, honestly, the only good character in this whole movie is the scientist guy. Like, his wife keeps talking about how he's terrible and was awful in their marriage. But I'm like, this movie is doing a bad job of making me believe that, because all I see is genuine concern for his daughter, who he hasn't seen in presumably years, and concern for the citizens, because he keeps telling everybody, we should evacuate now before anything happens. Because we'll only have 10 minutes once it does happen. And everyone's like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. How could we do that? That will inconvenience everybody. What if it doesn't happen? Will you be responsible? I'm like, bro, you should have just said, yes, I'll be responsible if nothing happens. And then watch stuff play out. Anyway, so then the Manshik guy, he proposes to Yeonhee, and she's like, oh, you gotta give me a day to think about it. If there's a red ribbon on the store, that means that it's a yes. And he's like, okay. But then she tells his half-brother, like, oh my god, Manshik proposed to me. And he's like, oh, you really don't know anything. So he tells her, which we see in a flashback earlier in the movie, that Manshik was actually...
That was a flashback. I knew there was going to be a flashback.
Of course there's a flashback. It's a flashback to that opening scene. What happened right before. So the fish, they're in the ocean, you know, there's chaos going on. They're trying to secure this, like, swinging fish cage thing. And Manshik is like, we need to secure this other fish cage on this other side. And the dad, like Yeonhee's dad, is like, no, we need to do this one first. Because the dad is like, he's been doing it for a while. He was like, Manshik learned from him, whatever. Manshik's like, listen, you might be the senior on land, but out here, this is my ship. I'm your captain. You got to do what I say. The dad's like, I really think that's a bad idea. I really think this one isn't secure yet. The swinging thing isn't secure yet. We really need to, like, and he's like, no, just do as I say. So the dad's like, okay, fine. So he goes over there, but then of course someone slips the line of the swinging fish thing, and it lands on the dad, and that's how he got trapped under it. And that's
how does the brother know?
Because the brother was on the ship with him.
Oh, he was on the ship. Okay, I was like, did he just tell him?
No. They were all there together. Yeah. So that's how the half brother, the one that doesn't have a job, knows. So they're like, oh, okay. And so she hears this, and she's upset and crying, and she's like, oh my god. So she has the red ribbon, and she like releases it into the ocean. And then the next day, Manshik goes over, and he doesn't see the red ribbon, and he's like, okay, I guess it's a no then. She's like, yeah, I heard what happened. And he's like, oh, I'm so sorry. And then, also, like, the 3 gangstery guys, like, they gang up on the rescue diver because for some reason, he keeps meeting up with that dumbass girl. And
she keeps harassing him.
Yeah, but he likes her for some reason. And I'm like, this is awful. And she's like, oh, I like your watch. We should trade watches. He's like, this is my rescue diving watch. It's actually important to my job. But then, of course, he decides to take it off and give it to her. And he's like on his way to go see her because of the fireworks show. This is like the day before. And the gangsters meet him and they're like, hey, don't you know she's my fiance? Stay away from her. And they beat him up. And he's like, oh. And then, like, the next day, she's like, how come you stood me up? You're so mean. And he's like, I don't want to see you anymore. Like, go away. And she's like, what? Huh? And starts crying and being annoying. So, like, oh, this stuff is happening. And then, like, Manchik's uncle, the developer, he's, like, trying to be like, hey, I know you're worried about this, but, like, I'll get you a good place in the store, in the mall. And they're like, I don't want it. Yeonhee goes over to him and is like, I'm actually going to leave Busan. I don't want to be here anymore. I'm going to go. Which is weird because right before that, she said, like, my dad wouldn't want me to give up the store because we're part of Haeundae and he would hate it if, like, I became part of your mall. But also, I'm leaving. So I'm like, girl, which one is it? Is it your dad wants you to be a part of Haeundae or you're leaving? Like, this doesn't make any sense. And she's like, oh, I'm leaving, blah, blah, blah. And then Donghoo's mom was supposed to go on some picnic. And she's like, goes right up to the bus, and all the ladies are like, come on, get on with us. You made it all the way here. And she's like, actually, I'll go next time. And it's like,
there's a bus.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, there's not going to be a next time. You're going to buy shoes for your ungrateful son. That's what's going to happen. And then the grandma and the little boy are on, like, they're in, like, a taxi cab or something, and all this stuff is happening. And then the big earthquake hits. The 7.0 earthquake hits near the island. Oh, my God. And then right before, like, literally, like, a minute before the evacuation alarm goes off, the guy's like, sir, this earthquake just hit. It's literally what I said is going to happen is happening. You need to call the evacuation. He's like, we didn't get the order yet. Why should we? What if it's not? Blah, blah, blah. And then, like, his other guy comes over and is like, hey, the evacuation just sounded, so we should start. So now there's only 40 minutes left in the movie. It's like 30 to 40 minutes left. We've slogged through an hour and a half of stupid, pointless family drama. And then finally the disaster happens in literally the final act. Like, the third act is a disaster. So I'm like, all right, let's see who eats it here. Will it be the people I want? We'll find out. So the wave comes, and of course it's this monstrous, ridiculously large wave that's, like, impossible to even conceive of. And the people on the beach see it, and they're like, oh my, well, like, an earthquake happens first. So they feel an earthquake, and people are like, oh my God, what? And then the water recedes, like, extremely quickly. I'm like, none of this makes any sense scientifically. And then, so the wave is coming, and the people are running away from the beach, and then some little girl falls onto the sand and starts crying and refuses to move. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to tell my future child, hey, listen, if we're running in a disaster situation and you fall...
Listen, you little shit.
And you fall, you get right back up. Like, you can call for me.
Right back up.
You can call for me. I will come back to get you, but I better see you getting back up onto your feet. I don't want to see you laying down there.
I better see a will to live and survive.
Literally. In order to survive, you have to survive. Yeah,
if you want to survive, you have to survive.
Literally, it's like, get back up on your feet, run to me, meet me halfway. Don't make me go all the way back to get you. Like, I will, but please don't do that. It will be easier for both of us. So this girl is crying, and everyone's running around. The dad's like, oh my God. So, like, okay, so when I saw this scene out of context in the compilation, I thought this was like a main character. No, it's just some random guy and his kid. So...
Heroes of their own journey, Corinne.
Yeah, it's his own daughter. So he runs over there to get her, and of course they're like the last people on the beach, and he, like, there's this slow-mo shot of, like, him picking her up, and he sees the wave behind him, and I'm like, there it is. There's the poster shot. And which I'm surprised it wasn't in the trailer. And then they're running, and the wave is coming over. And then, of course, the brother's mom with the shoes, she's, like, walking out of the store having just bought them. And she's like, oh, there's this wave. What do I do? And it's, like, coming. Yeah, and then also we see, like, the uncle there. And he's like, oh, no, there's a wave. Look at it. And it's, like, coming in. And then Manchik and the girl are like, oh my God, there's a wave. And they're like, right?
Why is that how everyone responds?
They're just like, whoa. And they're like, we gotta go. We gotta run. So they're running. Everyone's running. the scientist guy, it's so they're having at the World Expo thing, they're all like talking, and then suddenly this like white woman comes in and she like hurriedly talks to like the American guy, and she's like, we gotta go in, and he just like gets up and leaves in the middle of someone else talking, and then she starts like telling other people like and then finally the Korean guy, he's like, hey, the evacuation is ordered, we need to go now. So they're like, oh. And then of course the lady, she's about to like get evacuated, but she's like, wait, where is my daughter? And so she calls the hotel room. Her daughter is sleeping and doesn't hear the phone, and the boyfriend is nowhere to be seen, and of course she's on like the 17th floor of the hotel, so the mom's like, I gotta go get my daughter, and she gets into the elevator. I'm like, bitch, why? And then some other people are in the aquarium, and some girls in the bathroom, and we see like the water and the aquarium glass explodes, and you know, the fish come out, and I'm like, okay, so these annoying people are dead, right? Wrong, as I find out 30 minutes later.
Wrong!
Wrong! I was like, how do these people survive? Surely the shark would have ate them.
The shark was also annoyed and swam away.
Yeah, he also swam away. And then the scientist guy, he gets a phone call, and he's like, the woman's like, oh my god, I can't get to our daughter. And he's like, where is she? She's like, she's on the 17th floor. And he's like, where are you? She was like, don't worry about where I am. I was like, lady, say you're in the elevator and the water is filling up. So he like gets to the 17th, and then the wave hits. And this wave is so enormous. It's like bigger than some of these skyscrapers. And there are some tall buildings in Busan, and it's just bigger than all of them. And also, like, it hits like the bridge, and they're like, and it looks like the grandma and the little boy are like dead too. And I'm like, okay, there's no way they survived that. Anyways.
Wrong!
So it's just scenes of destruction. The dad gets to the girl, and this, I was telling Jesse, I was like, I actually haven't seen this in a disaster movie. So like the water is receding now, and so he's trying to get to his daughter, and she's like hardly swimming, but she's like getting pulled towards the like the open window. So he's like, oh my god. So he like grabs her, and that's the shot we see in the trailer where she's like dangling from the top of the 17th floor. And I was like, wouldn't the water like recede at like a consistent slow level? Like you'd fall out the window, but you wouldn't actually fall. You would just like slowly, you know, go down that low. It wouldn't be this dramatic like the toilet flush scenario, you know, which is like how it was basically happening. I was like, this water is moving incredibly quickly. Like there's no way this amount of water would happen that fast. But anyways, still, I thought it was an interesting thing I hadn't seen before in a disaster movie. And then also Manshik and Yeonhee are like in the streets, but then the power line is about to go into the water, and they're like, quick, we gotta climb out of the water. So they climb out of the water right as the power line hits, and then everybody in the water gets electrocuted, which was like the most unpleasant part of it. I also haven't really seen that in a disaster movie, so that I was like, that's kind of sad. And there's the water's everywhere. Oh, and then so then the bridge, there's no more water on it anymore, and then we see the half-brother, and that's where, like, there's, like, a ship that had collided with the bridge, but then it was, like, a shipping ship, so then the storage containers are falling down and crushing people. Oh, that
dumb scene.
Yeah, so they're, like, crushing people, and I'm like, is this supposed to be a comedy scene? Because he keeps running around and just narrowly escaping death.
Yeah.
So it's like he ducks, and then like the wire hits like the one girl, and then the shipping container crushes 2 people next to him and crushes 3 other people next to him. And then it looks like it crushed him, but it's like this far away from him. And I'm like, why did this idiot survive? I know his mom is dead. Like
he needs to live with the guilt.
Right. And then at one point he like, I don't know, wants to light a cigarette, and it's that stupid lighter that they had that gag with, and he's like, oh, this doesn't work, so he, like, throws it behind him, but it's still lit. So then, of course, there's gas leaking everywhere, so it starts a fire, and he's, like, running away from it, and he somehow survives this, too. I'm like, no way, the whole bridge exploded, and you survived this? But hilariously, when the bridge exploded, it sent the shipping containers flying into the other buildings, and I was like, what? I laughed out loud at that part. I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, it already was ridiculous. This went beyond ridiculous now. So, yeah, what is going on is what I was thinking the entire time. Anyways, so then Manshik is trying to, like, help Yeonhee up, but then he falls into the water, and it looks like he's going, like, they're screaming at each other because she grabs his hand and she's like, don't let go, how are we supposed to get married if you die? And he was like, no, you gotta live. And she's like, no. And then she's screaming and everyone's screaming. I'm like, everyone's so loud. And then
can you guys stop screaming, please? I understand you're dying in a disaster, but it's really annoying.
It was really annoying. And then she loses his grip and it looks like he's lost forever, but no, his uncle grabs him and it's like, yay, and the uncle brings him up and he's like, oh my god, thank you, uncle. And then, similar to in Twisters 2, what looks like a laundry machine comes flinging down the river and collides the uncle and he gets swept off.
What?
Yeah, so now he's dead. I'm like, okay. Meanwhile, that, like, douchebag gangster guy and the annoying fucking girl, they were on, like, the little boat when the thing hit, and it looked like a wave had capsized them, and I was like, okay, good, they're dead then. But no, the rescue helicopter comes over, and the rescue brother, the second decent character in this movie, goes down, and he's like, I'm gonna save you, but they only have 2 harnesses. I'm like, this shouldn't be a problem. Surely you could reuse the harness. So they go down.
No, Corinne!
Yeah. So they go down, and he saves the girl first, and he's like, let me go get the guy, and he gets the guy, but then he, like, wakes up halfway through and starts struggling and falls out of the harness. So I was like, okay, so he's dead, right? He hit the water with his back, and he's dead? No. He goes back down to go get him again. So they're, like, going back up, but then, oh no, what's going on? The little crank thing is, like, not having a fun time, and uh-oh, the rope is fraying. They're too heavy. Only one person. It can only bear the weight of one person. We spent 5 minutes of the rescue diver making this agonizing choice, and I'm like, why? I mean, I get that it's agonizing, but you're spending an awful lot of time thinking about whether it should be you.
Kareem would be like, bitch!
Maybe he was
Let's go! He's dead! He's dead! And just get on.
Yeah, maybe he was just grappling with the fact he's gonna die. But I was also like, can't you just bring the guy up in the one harness and then bring it back down to get the rescue diver on his own? Like, why is this?
There's no time, Kareem.
Why is this a
We're running out of time.
I didn't understand it. I'm like, there's something here I'm not understanding, or it actually doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't understand why this is an issue here. Surely you could just drop the harness back down and, like, go get him, right? No. So he, like, takes off his watch and gives it to the douchebag and is like, give this to that girl and,
give it to that girl.
Give it to her. I forgot her name. I don't even care. And she's like, no, oh my god, no. And I'm like, I hope you regret this the rest of your life. You are so annoying. And he...
It was you. You deserve to die.
Literally. So, also, he's, like, attached to it with a carabiner. He takes out a knife to cut the fabric that attaches him to the carabiner. I'm like, you could just unclip the carabiner.
There's no time, Green. The time it takes to unhook, to press the thing, and to no. Times only.
He spent so much time mourning his imminent death too. And then the other thing too is, like, he had previously unclipped himself from midair to go get the guy earlier. So I know he could do it. He, like, put his mask on and everything and
we know he has the skill.
We know he could do it, but he didn't. This time he dramatically takes out his knife and, like, cuts it. And it looks like a one clean cut. And I'm like, I know you would have had to saw through that thing if it was actually, like, rescue grade. So this doesn't so anyway, so he, like, falls down into the water, and he's just looking up at this crying girl, waving and smiling, and I'm like, I guess this is supposed to be like, don't worry about me, but then we see the wave come and take him. And I'm also like, you could have put your mask on. You could have, like, you're a rescue diver. You've got, like, looks like you got a little tank on you or something. You've got, like, a snorkel mask. Like, you could potentially survive this. Like... What?
No, Corinne, there's no time.
There's no
time.
Yeah, there's only 10 minutes left in the movie at this point, so there's no time. So I don't even know how Monze survives, to be honest. I don't know how any of them survive, because there's another wave coming. There's another wave coming. This wave is even bigger. Remember when you said there's 3 waves?
Yeah, but wait, there's one more wave, and it's the biggest wave yet.
There's at least 2, and the second one is even bigger than the other one. So they're on the top of that hotel. We're back with the scientist and his wife now. This wife in the elevator, let me tell you. Okay. The water is kind of like up to here. So she's like on her tippy toes and she's having this tearful conversation with her daughter on the phone. She's like, I'm not going to make it, blah, blah, blah. Like, also that man that saved you, that's actually your father. And the girl's like, what? I'm like, that's a lot to drop on an 8-year-old. And, okay, but like the elevator, this woman is probably like, what, 5'6"? This elevator is at least 8 feet tall. So even though it's almost like at her like tippy toe level, like the water's almost at 6 feet.
Maybe she can't swim.
She's still got 2 feet, 2 cubic feet, and she's acting like
maybe she doesn't know how to float.
That was blowing my mind. I was like, why aren't you treading water? Like in San Andreas and the Wave, these people were caught in a room where they had 2 inches of clearance from the water and the ceiling, and they were suffocating. You know, this woman has a whole other, like, you could survive in that elevator for another hour.
There's no time, Corinne. There's no time.
I guess she doesn't know how to swim. I don't know. She's not even treading water.
She doesn't know how to swim. She doesn't know how to float.
There's
no time to learn. She's dying.
None of it made any sense. But then, of course, it looks like she's about to die, but some random hotel worker that we saw earlier in the movie hears her banging on the door and then opens the elevator for her, and all the water gushes out. So it's like, okay, I guess she survived. So she goes to the top of the floor of the hotel, and they're finally reunited as a family. I have no idea where her boyfriend is. But then the helicopter's gonna get them.
He was sleeping with some other woman, and he's probably dead now.
Probably. And then the wave is coming again. It's the second wave, and it's even bigger.
No.
So they're like, women and children. So they run to go give their daughter to the rescue people. And then they're saying goodbye to their daughter, and the dad's like, I'm your dad. And
I'm your dad!
And the girl is crying, like, Mom, Dad, whatever. This is where I cried.
Wait, they said women and children. Why doesn't she just go with her daughter? She's leaving this daughter behind.
It was already full at this point.
God.
She was like the last one they got in there. Some old lady was like, don't worry, I'll take care of her.
I can't trust this grandma. I'm sorry.
Yeah. It's just them two, and they're saying goodbye, and they're crying. This is the scene where I was like, okay, you got me. This is sad.
This is where you were crying?
This is where I cried. Because, like, the girl was crying her head off, so I'm like, all right, the crying child has gotten to me emotionally.
All right, you got me.
Yes. And then they, like, kind of look at each other, and they're like, I'm sorry, and they embrace, and they're crying, and then the wave takes them. So it's like, okay. And then we see in the aftermath, somehow the half-brother and the grandma have survived, and they're on top of a shipping container. And then we see, like, his nephew. And I'm like, how did you survive? How did the nephew survive this? Like, he's doggy paddling around, like, help me. And then everyone's like, I don't know how to swim. The grandma's like, go get your nephew, and kicks the other guy off to go get him. And then I don't know, the other people, the people that were in the aquarium magically survived. The girl in the bathroom magically survived. I'm like, how did you survive? You were, like, in a tunnel somewhere in, like, I don't know how half these people survived. But, of course, right before we get to, like, the catharsis, we see the water, and then, like, one of the shoes float by. So it's like, okay, so Dong-hoon's mom obviously died. So, like, she died, and then the old guy died, and it was revealed that the uncle had actually gone back to, like, not do the development of the big mall, so he wasn't such a bad guy after all. And then they had, like, the rescue diver died, so they're like, let's do a funeral for the rescue diver and, like, their sacrifice and blah 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 blah, which is, like, kind of weirdly long. And then I don't know, they decide to move on with their lives, and then the brother is crying, holding a picture of his dead mom. I'm like, yeah, you're a bum. You should feel bad. And then the one girl is crying at the rescue diver's funeral. I'm like, yeah, you're awful. I hope you feel awful for the rest of your life. Fictional character.
For the rest of your fictional life.
And then Yunhee goes over to like her destroyed restaurant, but then when she's going through cleaning through stuff, she sees somehow the red ribbon she had released into the ocean has made its way back in. So she's like, oh yeah, I guess I am gonna marry this guy. And then the movie ends. So that's the movie.
So he's like a lot older than her then?
They don't say, but I think he's at least 10 years older than her, maybe 5 years, but he's older than her for sure.
Because I thought it was going to be like a father-daughter relationship, but then it was like, I'm trying to woo her, so that was a little weird. Okay.
Yeah, I think he like didn't even consider her romantically, even though he did love her, because he was like, this is like my boss's daughter, or like my mentor's daughter who is younger than me. And I need to take care of her. That doesn't mean like fall in love and marry her, but she's the one that was like, when are you going to like ask me out and like marry me, because I've been dropping all these hints, blah, blah, blah. Like she like, they go to her father's grave at some point in the movie, and she kind of like passive aggressively talks to her father about, why won't this guy propose to me? And that's where he gets the hint. So yeah, they're at least 5 years apart, if not more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I assumed this was like, she was a little kid, and he was like 20, and it was like 20 years later, so he would have been like 40. That's what I was imagining.
No, they used the same actress for the opening scene and the other scene, so she would have been like maybe late high school, or
like
something.
15 or something.
Yeah, exactly.
To like 20 or 25. Okay.
Yeah. So that's the movie. That's Korea's first disaster movie.
It should have been their only disaster. No, I'm kidding.
I want to see another of their disaster movies called Baekdusan, which in English they translated it to Ashfall, even though Baekdusan is a mountain. Like it's the name of their mountain, but in English it's Ashfall.
Oh, is this Ashfall supposed to be like a volcano?
Yeah. But I didn't realize that mountain is an active volcano. I was like, oh, that's cool. So
I figured it out, and I didn't even know anything.
Yeah. But the mountain is in North Korea. Like it borders North Korea and China, so it's involves some of that. But yeah, that's the movie. And I was like 30 minutes in, I was like, this is not a good movie.
Why didn't you just turn it off?
I wanted to see it to the end. Also,
I would have just turned it off.
Just because...
Or I would have just skipped through all of it.
Just because it's not a good movie does not mean I won't watch it again. Because Day After Tomorrow is... I would not... Okay. Day After Tomorrow is an okay movie. 2012 is not a good movie, but I will rewatch that movie a lot. So this movie, I'm not going to sit through the first hour and a half. That's a waste. I'm just going to skip straight to when the earthquake tsunami happens and just watch that when I need to, because it's just, it doesn't age well. There's like a scene where the main character kicks a puppy for some reason.
Why?
It was a CG puppy, but it was still like, why? There's a lot of like slapping and hitting each other, which is like not great. There's a lot of screaming. There's a lot of like not good language, and just again pronounced basically alcoholism. Like people are constantly drunk and drinking. So it's very dated. A lot of the characters are extremely annoying. And the most annoying characters don't die, which is even more annoying. But it was entertaining in the last 40 minutes at least. So.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was wildly popular.
Really?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay. Sure.
Do you have any thoughts?
My movie was better.
I know your movie was better.
My movie was really good until I lost steam at the end.
Even then.
Thank you. It seems just so bogged down by all of these stories.
Yeah.
that I was just like, I don't even know who that is anymore. They really should have focused on one person or two people in that family and the scientist. I think that would have made it less convoluted.
Yeah.
And also, why is it like an hour of just nothing?
It's like an hour and a half
That
of
is
nothing.
so weird. That is so interesting. It might just be the style of the time.
Yeah.
Which, okay, but it is very strange. Is it like they're trying to be like, look at the stakes, look at what their lives are like?
I think the intent...
How 10 minutes of time can ruin, like, your entire life, but...
Maybe, I think the intent was to get you to be invested in the characters, so then when the tsunami hits, then you would care.
Yeah, but you don't need 90 minutes of investment, right?
No.
Like, if you look at any other disaster film, like, it's... Or even any action film, like, sometimes it can just take you 5-10 minutes. If you characterize your characters well enough, then... that's all it takes.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about any movie, I mean, that's why you stick around.
Yeah.
For most films, is because you have some kind of connection or relationship, in a way, with that character that you're like, okay, I see what you're going through. I want you to survive this. Right? Like, it seems strange that... I don't know if maybe they were just like, we don't have the buy-in, so we'll make the buy-in by letting you see, like, oh, these two... and these two, and these two, and these two. But it's interesting.
Yeah.
And I think if you're going to have characters that are no good, usually, well, I mean, if we look at it from the American film, like, they are the ones who die or learn some kind of lesson in some way.
Yeah. And
it does feel like, okay, why is only the good characters dying? Right? Like, can we even guarantee that the other people have really learned a lesson? It doesn't really seem like it.
Yeah.
I mean, from the way you describe it, like, when the bum of a brother is holding the mom's picture, like, does he look like he has a job, right? Or, like, do we see him maybe getting a job? Like, those were things that you would see in, like, maybe an American film, where it would be like, okay, I was a bum, my mom died, she died in an effort to get me shoes so I could go to an interview. Then the payoff would be, at the end, you would see them going to the interview or getting a job or doing something to say, I am paying back your sacrifice.
Yeah.
As opposed to just being like, here's a picture of my dead mom.
Yeah.
Right? Because, like, obviously you're going to feel bad because she was your mom and she's dead, but it's like, yeah. I mean, same thing even for the girl who was like, okay, how are you going to pay back the sacrifice? Are you just, like, it doesn't seem from what you've told me that there is that. Because there should be, again, if you show a gun in the first act, you should see the payoff in the third. So, like, if you're seeing these things, if you're setting up these relationships and stuff, I guess the only thing that got wrapped up was, like, yes, I will marry this guy in the end. But also, if he wasn't even interested in marrying her, then it's like, why are we forcing these two into marriage? And also, he's a drunk. Why would you want this girl to marry him if he's a drunk? But I mean, it might also be the time and the culture or whatever. But it is.
Yeah.
It is interesting.
It is. It's very, like, I haven't seen enough Korean films to get a good enough handle on the storytelling conventions. And I've seen a few dramas, but that's also very, like, different because it's television.
Yeah.
So it can be so expanded, right? So I can't really speak to, is this just the style? Is this the director? What is this, like, a bad movie by Korean standards? Is it just not resonating because we're used to Western storytelling? I don't know. But I think, like, the intent was to be like, oh yeah, the people that didn't deserve to survived, and now they have to live with the guilt. Because it looked like that the girl that was crying over the diver, that she was, like, dealing with the guilt, and, like, his watch goes off at some point, and, like, that's kind of it. And then the guy that he saved that totally didn't deserve it just looked guilty. and it's
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah,
That's all we really
yeah,
get.
Right? Like there should be like, oh, you know what? Maybe you see him going into the office to sign up to be maybe a rescue driver, right? Like, I'll pay back, right? Same thing with her, right? Maybe what is she doing? Is she helping people in the recovery? Like, you know, there should be some kind of visual of us seeing a payoff.
Yeah.
Right? Because again, if they're such awful, terrible people, they should learn a lesson.
The
right?
thing is, I don't know if a Korean audience would view that girl as annoying or not.
I guess that's true, right? If that's like the way of being cute or whatever, that again, that might be like a culture thing.
Because I've seen that type of character in K-dramas before, and I'm like, you are literally so annoying. I hate you. Why does the guy even like you? You know, like,
why would that be appealing?
Exactly. Why is the narrative treating you in a positive light, in an endearing light? Like, why? Like, what is this? I don't understand this. Like, this character trope, basically. So to me, she was very annoying. I'm certain I'm not like the only Korean person that would find her annoying. But there's a part of me that wonders, like, is this like an acceptable thing? Like, I don't understand this character, because to me she's a brat and I hate her. So, but then I'm trying to think. Oh, the guy who lost his mom with a job interview. They said he won some civic prize because he saved a bunch of people. And there was
But that's happenstance and not something he has actively done.
Yeah.
Okay, continue.
He had a piece of paper next to him, but I couldn't tell because I can't read Korean that well. If it was like, is that the prize, or did he go to the job interview and get the job? Like, I couldn't tell what that piece of paper was. It just showed him holding the photograph of his mom to his chest and sobbing. So again, it's like, oh, the bum has like finally realized, I don't know, the absence of his mother. Again, it's just guilt. Like, it just seems like their punishment is guilt. So I don't know, I guess maybe, but it did, again, it was kind of like, okay, I guess it's like the coincidence of if she had gone on the picnic with her friends, she would have survived, but she didn't because she went to buy shoes for her son. Isn't that so tragic? Like, it almost feels like the tragedy is the point. But I had such an issue with, like, the wild tonal changes because it felt like two completely different movies.
It really does, because it should be connected in some way besides, like, they're all part of the same family.
Yeah.
Like, what is the ongoing story? And I think, I don't know, the tonal shifts, they are pretty jarring because it's like, we're at a baseball game. I'm getting hit in the face with the thing. Like, is it a romantic comedy? Is it a disaster movie? I wonder if it's because it's, like, the first disaster Korean movie that they were, like, kind of didn't know how to create it or something.
Yeah.
But it is very strange. Or is it supposed to be like, don't worry guys, nothing bad's gonna happen, right? Or is it supposed to be like some kind of like satirical look at disaster movies?
I don't think it's satire.
I don't think it is,
I
but
don't think it's satire.
Like,
I definitely don't think it's satire. I think there is definitely political commentary in terms of like urban development and displacing people, like urban, like retail gentrification. I don't know if that's just gentrification or not, but like that sort of thing where it's like, hey, there are people that have lived here for a very long time. Their livelihoods are going to get affected because you want to develop like a giant mall, which ironically, I think there is actually like a giant mall there now. But so like there's a bit of that. There's also a bit of like, I know you told us, the scientist told us about this thing for like a week now and we just ignored him. And now we're paying the consequences. So there's a bit of that, which I can see as like influence from Jaws. I can see some influence from like Godzilla. I can see influence from, again, Roland Emmerich. Very obvious, strong influence there. Even like the title, like the tsunami scenes where they're running through the city strongly reminded me of the New York scene from Day After Tomorrow when the wave hit. Even like the initial sweeping, like a lot of it, I was like, okay, yeah, this guy watched Day After Tomorrow and was like, I want to make that.
And ran with it.
and ran with it, which makes sense because Day After Tomorrow came out in 2004. This movie came out in 2009. It lines up perfectly that he would have watched that and been directly inspired and was like, we could make that in Busan, you know? So it's... The guy, I think also, I don't think, I'm looking at his filmography, it's not his first film, but it is his first... Most of the movies he's done are like romantic comedy or action comedy. Like he usually does comedy. So that kind of explains why there was so much comedy in this movie, even though I didn't find too much of it very funny. Again, I think that's just product of its time, what was socially acceptable back then, because a lot of the jokes were kind of physically violent jokes. But I think it was that. I think he got... I think it was a lot of like they just had never done something like this before. Not to say that Korean cinema has never had serious movies before, because they have, but something like this, because the structure of it reminds me a little bit of the Godzilla movies, where Godzilla doesn't really attack until like the end. Like Godzilla -1 was definitely like you see a little bit of Godzilla in the beginning, and then we get like 30 minutes of just focusing on these characters and their lives, but they did it really well, and it was really well acted, and it built up a lot of sympathy, and then Godzilla starts attacking. But then even then, it's like they didn't spend an hour and a half with like a completely different movie, and Godzilla then shows up in the last 30 minutes. It was like Godzilla showed up like repeatedly throughout the film. So my issue with this, and what I think makes a successful disaster movie, is the disaster is your monster. The monster has to show up throughout the film. You can't just hint at it at one point and then constantly hint at it, and then it doesn't show up till the very end. That was like the biggest issue with the first, well, not the first, but like the most recent American Godzilla movie that started the new American Godzilla, like the 2013 one or whatever. Where it was like, we kept seeing hints and hints of Godzilla, but we didn't actually see him fighting anything until like the last 30 minutes of the movie. But even that, the film still felt very strongly connected to Godzilla. There wasn't all this superfluous, random slice of life stuff happening like in this film. So I agree with your critique on that. It made it very frustrating to watch. It was different. I'm curious to see like a more modern Korean disaster movie. Like I said, the Baekdusan one is a bit more like it was made more recently. So I'm curious to see that, or some of the other ones, to be like how is it now? How is it structured now? Because this movie was from 2009. I'm sure there are plenty of American movies from 2009 that are like not it. But I don't know. It was like, I can't tell if this movie is bad if I'm not used to the storytelling convention, or if it's a mix of both, or if it's just this director, you know, so. Yeah. But then when I watched the opening 10 minutes of Ode to My Father, which he made 5 years later, it was totally serious and like very, like, to me it seemed very well made, which is kind of why this movie was so surprising to see the way that it was, because it was totally unserious, except for when they decided to talk about the tsunami and then the last 40 minutes. So, yeah.
I see.
Yeah, and it didn't talk about climate change at all either. It was just the earthquakes are happening. It seemed to just be like, hey, I know we don't think about Korea as an earthquake zone, but earthquakes do happen, so...
Earthquakes do happen, so watch out.
Tsunamis...
Take earthquakes seriously.
Tsunamis could happen.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, but it was wildly successful. Let me see. It received more than 11 million admissions nationwide.
Wow.
It was a summer blockbuster. It won a bunch of awards. Cute pen. The guy won... They won an award for the CG at the Blue Dragon Film Awards, which is in Korea. And it was the audience choice for the most popular film. So clearly a lot of people really liked it.
Yes, very successful. Interesting.
Yeah. But I'm like,
maybe we just don't get it as Americans.
Maybe we just don't get it. But I mean, also, like, the American Oscars don't reflect
That's true.
What is popular versus what is good. And even what is good is not always reflected. Like, the amount of people that are like, Avengers should win the Oscar for Best Picture. And I'm like, you have no idea what good filmmaking is.
Just because you like a movie doesn't mean it's the best movie.
Exactly. Or like Transformers, right? That was wildly popular. If we watched the first Transformers, I think it would be about as bad as this movie.
Any Transformers movie.
Yeah. So...
My God.
There's that, which I will say I would love if the Oscars had an Audience Choice Award, or like if people could vote for their favorite movie, a Citizen's Choice Award. Yeah. If it was like, hey, vote for your favorite movie, and you could pick any movie that had just been released, I think they should do that. So then we could be like, here's what won the Oscar, and then here's the Oscar for like Audience Choice, you know, and it's just whatever movie got the most votes. I think that would be. They should have that at the Oscars. Most popularity contest. Because then Avengers and all that would probably win quite frequently.
Yeah.
So, okay. Any other thoughts?
No.
Monze, is there a Mexican disaster movie? Surely.
There might be, but I don't care about disaster movies enough to look that up.
But what if I want to watch it?
Then you Google it.
I'm looking it up right now.
Are you Googling Mexican disaster movies?
Yeah.
I'm going to Google it too, because I'm going to Google it.
2. One from the 70s. They're both from the 70s. Is that it?
Cyclone and Survive?
Yeah.
Do I need to write Mexican disaster movie? I honestly, to me, that makes sense. To me, it makes sense just because, like, Mexico does get hurricanes.
And
we get earthquakes. Yeah. But I feel like the true disaster of Mexico are things like the corruption of governments and like the drug and cartels and gangs.
Right.
And there's a lot of movies about that.
Yeah.
Yes. And I feel like a disaster film has to really make sense in a country that is maybe more first world, like very advanced in a way. Because you need something to make a disaster of. A lot of Mexico is still very rural, right? Or they're small towns, right? Like the DF, or Mexico City, is probably is the biggest city in all of Mexico, right? You might have like Puebla, which is again a big city, but it's not on the scale of like, you know, Chicago, New York, you know, or even LA. You know, I definitely think it's much, much smaller. So it's like, okay, if there's a disaster in, I don't know, Puebla, like what would that look like? Right? And like Mexico City has had earthquakes, right? Like there was a huge earthquake just a few years ago, and then I think the last big one was maybe the 80s. And we have volcanoes, like my grandma lives at the foot of a volcano in Puebla. But again, it's like, okay, what is the disaster really? Because it's like, even without a volcano attack or an earthquake, like there's still a lot of terrible things happening.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Like, I feel like, to me, disaster movies have to happen in a place that has reached a certain pinnacle where it's like, we fear all of this that we have achieved being destroyed.
Yeah.
And if you haven't really achieved like a pinnacle, it's like there's not much there to destroy anyway.
No, that makes sense to me. I was also thinking too, even in a place that does have a lot of natural disasters, would they even want to make disaster films that are for entertainment if they deal with them with like high human cost, right? Because like the US certainly has, like, we have lots of natural disasters, but to be honest, I don't see a lot of natural disaster movies about hurricanes.
Yeah.
Right?
That's true.
And those are probably some of our highest,
our most dangerous, and our like most deadly.
Exactly. And they happen every single year, and we get so many of them. And even with like a tornado, it's kind of just twisters. Like maybe there's a movie called Cyclone or something out there, but it's usually just twisters, or we see like a twister in a movie like in Day After Tomorrow. It's often like a mega tsunami wave, which I think the US has had, but not in recent modern history. And that certainly plays off of anxieties of the big one, right? For the West Coast specifically, and because it's Hollywood, like that makes sense to me because the entire West Coast is worried about the big one. It's very earthquakes, which we've had very bad earthquakes, but our worst earthquakes were all last century or prior.
San Francisco, like 1905, right?
Yeah, like we've had more recent.
No one's alive to remember that earthquake.
Literally, like Northridge was really bad, but like that, which was more recent, obviously. But even we've had a couple, but it's been like volcano, right? Or this building is on fire, or like the Titanic, right? And then more frequently, zombies is like the biggest one. Zombies and aliens. Like I think those are the most popular. Because like no one has ever dealt with zombies, so we can like fully immerse ourselves in
it has
the
to
fantasy.
Feels like it has to be more fictionalized.
Yeah.
What is a possible disaster that is not very likely, maybe could, but not very likely to affect us.
Yeah.
Well, when I looked up like even just which country has the most disaster movies, obviously it's the United States, and then it's the UK, it's France, China, India, Germany, Japan, Italy.
Okay. India's on there? That one, okay, that makes sense to me. Well, they have such a big film industry too. So that
India
would
is
make
just
sense,
it's also a huge country
they
as well.
They probably make every single type of movie. But yeah, the US, it makes sense. I feel like we kind of invented it.
Yeah.
Oh no.
I think so.
Fire.
No?
Made by James Williamson of England in 1901. This was a silent film.
Oh, because I was like, I know there's a few, again, early Hollywood films about the San Francisco earthquakes.
And even the Titanic, too.
And the Titanic, obviously.
Yeah.
As a disaster. So, interesting.
Yeah. King Kong, technically, Pompeii.
Yeah.
1937, the hurricane. But it's all like fictional places. And then, the San Francisco from 1936 is the earthquake. And then the Great Chicago Fire.
Clark Gable.
I think so.
Sorry, I think that one has Clark Gable and Spencer Tracy.
Spencer Tracy, definitely. I don't see Clark Gable. Oh, it does have Clark Gable. Yeah, you were right.
Oh my god, I'm so good. I'm so good.
You got it. Disaster.
I haven't seen it, but I know who's in it.
Almost as old as the film media itself. Yeah.
Come here, George. Stop being chichon. I know you wanted to eat 3 minutes ago. Technically, you wanted to eat like 2 hours ago, but say hello. Hi. Hi. He's like, I'm having none of this.
But yeah.
Mama.
I don't know. I feel like there's some interesting.
What is on your whiskers? Tape?
Ooh.
Tape? Weirdo? Okay, anyway, I give this movie 2 out of 5 stars.
2 out of 5 stars. That's probably what I would give it to.
I haven't seen it, but I think 2 out of 5.
Yeah.
I feel like I would watch it just to see some of like how bad it is and just like skip through all of it.
Yeah. I would say it's not an unwatchable film. Yeah, I would put it that way. It's like really stupid. Like, when I say it's bad, what I really mean is it's stupid. So, like, it just, what happens is very stupid. A lot of the characters are very stupid, to me. So it's, if you like that kind of humor, it could be good for you. I don't think either of us really like it, but it's not unwatchable. It definitely feels like if I was in the mood, I might rewatch it, or, like, it would make a really good, like, drinking game movie for people, or just like
if you want to die, I'm kidding.
Or like a stupid like party movie to put on in the background, like it's
in the background, like you stand there and you're like, there's no sound. You're like, what's going on?
It's like, what is happening here? And then like everyone watches the last.
Or like a
minutes.
Bar, or like a diner, or whatever. You see, and you're just kind of like.
Exactly.
You're intrigued, but like you don't really need to know what's going on.
Yeah, you don't need literally like the first hour and a half. It's like we literally don't need to pay attention to it. We could just talk. And then when the last 40 minutes happen, then it's like, oh wait a minute, like people are tired. Let's just watch the remaining 40 minutes of this movie.
Yeah, let's just sit here and watch this movie on that television over there.
Yeah. So it's not bad in terms of like this is a shit, terrible, god awful movie. It's definitely like I think it doesn't have that high of a rating on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't remember what it is. It's not super high, but I'm like I would give it 2 out of 5. Like that feels fine for me.
That feels fine.
Yeah, I really like this note in the Wikipedia page, where it says the film was released as tidal wave, and then in parentheses, an incorrect term, as such types of waves are actually caused by gravitational influences, not displacement of water.
Oh my god, who wrote that? People are so annoying.
I'm like, that's like something I would write.
Was it you? Was it you, Corinne?
I wish. But
I wish that was me.
Yeah. Anyway, and then all the YouTube comments in that trailer I sent you, they're like, oh my god, I cried so hard here. I love this movie, blah, blah, blah.
I saw that too. I was like,
I'm like, okay. I did cry though, so I can't even say anything. That's why I'm like, I can't even say it's like god awful horrible, because it did get to me emotionally. So.
God, man, did I cry.
Despite my best intentions, I cried. But anyways, okay. Well, we have our rating, 2 out of 5. If you've seen this movie, let us know what you think about it, and recommend any other disaster films that aren't American. I would really be interested to see how different countries treat it.
There's some Norwegian disaster
I've seen The Wave, which is incredible.
Okay.
That's like genuinely a good... That's an incredible movie.
When I Googled it, the Norwegian one popped up, and I was like, this one sounds interesting.
That one is actually, I've already watched it. That one is already really good. There's a sequel that I haven't watched because I'm worried, and I know...
It's not gonna,
Well, it's not that I'm worried. It's like, it might be too graphic for me. I have to I have to get myself ready for it before I watch it. And I know one of the main characters in the first movie dies in it, and I'm like, I'm not prepared for how she dies, because I heard it's upsetting. And then there's like another movie for like the unofficial trilogy of it, which I can't find anything about online, even though I'm interested in it, but I want to like read about it first. So yeah. I will also say, I read the synopsis before I watched it. When I was watching the movie, I was like, I don't remember this in the synopsis, because the synopsis does not include all of that. It just...
Oh.
That's why I thought the movie would be so different, because the synopsis kind of like... It's like, hey, here are these characters. This is what they want. This is what they're doing. And then the tsunami hits. So I thought the majority of the movie would be surviving the tsunami, but no. Anyways. But it was made for $16 million, and it got back $74.4 million USD.
Wow.
So that's pretty good. Anyways.
Very, very good.
Monze, where can they find us?
Oh, thank you for asking. You can find us at We Don't Watch Movies Pod on Instagram. You can find me at Magic Monster, also on Instagram.
And you can find me at Karina's Korean on Instagram. Yay! All right. Yay. Thanks for listening to this almost 2-hour podcast episode.
This one was long. I think part of it was my explanation went on for too long.
It's okay. It's totally
Apologies.
fine. So you could put this podcast on at the same time as watching Haeundae.
So stupid.
which one you enjoy more. Anyways, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.